Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your friend is being chastised unfairly, unjustly, and you find yourself just jumping in automatically, willing to defend him or her, and just not having it, saying, hey, you have no right to treat her this way, you have no right to treat him this way. But then moments later, if you were in that situation yourself, you wouldn't stand up for yourself, you wouldn't show up for yourself in that same way. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where if somebody were criticizing you immensely to the point that it was insulting, or insulting you to your face, and you're quiet, but when then they insult your parents or your daughter or your son, you just go ballistic and you're like, hey, look, don't talk about me, but don't talk about my children, don't talk about my family. If this sounds like you, I would like to ask you a really difficult question, and that is, what makes it okay for you to stand quiet and accept, injury to your self-esteem, be the first person to defend others? Yes, in first glance, you might think that that's such a noble characteristic, that you're selfless, that you don't care about yourself. But is it that you don't care about yourself, or is it that you don't love yourself? And that's what I want to talk about today. All right, guys, so this video is about pillar number 2. Pillar number 2 is so important. I am so excited to talk about it because it is very important for health. It is loving yourself. Don't hate yourself. Please say that to yourself again. I want to love myself. Don't hate yourself. And no, this is not about having this unconditional, no matter what, if I'm a terrible person or a good person, I love myself. No, this is about treating yourself like how you would treat others. Just like how you would fight for justice for others, you need to fight for justice for yourself. Just like you would put people in their place when they disrespect your mother or your father or your sister, your brother, somebody that you really care about, you have to put those same people in place when they disrespect you. And you can do it in a very dignified manner. You don't have to cuss them out. You don't have to, but you don't have to do it in a degrading way, but you should defend yourself. And let me tell you why. There is something in research now, cutting edge, that is called allostatic load. Allostatic load is a term in neuroscience and in the health space, medical field, that's coined to explain the wear and tear due to chronic stress. So, there is a new science emerging called neuroimmunobiology, which ties in our experiences, how much we internalize, and how that can affect our long-term health, whether it's cardiovascular, whether it's aging, and when it comes to even autoimmune diseases. Like, for example, if I'm tolerating a lot of things that I shouldn't be tolerating, like stressors, and I'm not reevaluating my life situation, or how can I relieve the stress instead of just being in endless classes for how to cope with stress. There comes a certain point where the problem is that you don't know how to cope. The problem is that it's just too much for you and you need to scale back. And if you don't do that, your immune system goes, haywire, and it starts attacking itself, and you might have inflammatory bowel disease. You might have a flare-up of your asthma, a flare-up of your psoriasis, a flare-up of your rheumatoid arthritis where your joints hurt. I'll give you a great example. Demi Moore, she wrote a great book called Inside Out. It's here on my shelf. And she had nephrotic syndrome. And she realized that whenever she was in a situation where she was stressed or she had a family crisis, she would have a flare-up of her nephrotic syndrome, which is a kidney disease, and she would swell up, retain a lot of water. I'm sure all of you can relate to that, where if you had a chronic condition, it would get worse, whether it's chronic pain, your pain is getting worse with stress. It's your body telling you to stop, reevaluate. Hey, listen, your body is telling you, no, please listen. And that's what I'm here to tell you. Love yourself, treat yourself like the best friend that you have. And if you don't love yourself, then ask further questions. What made you want to shrink yourself in order to fit into every other person's expectation of you? That's not your job. Your job is not to fit people's expectation. And that's why I bring in God, because when you have God and you feel like, hey, look, I'm a good moral person and I care about what God is telling me to do, and as long as you're pleasing God, and pleasing God means you have to do good with people, and you build that credit for yourself. Look, I give charity. I'm very patient with people, regardless of their status, regardless of how they're going to benefit me. I don't look down upon people that have less means than me. I don't only seek attention or approval from people who can directly help me. Do you know what I'm saying? When you build all of that respect for yourself and for your integrity, you will fall even more and more in love with yourself. And another way to really love yourself is to protect yourself. If somebody has wronged you, don't allow them to wrong you again. If they come into your life knocking, like, respectfully, do not reopen that door. Don't read your book backwards, just leave it alone. And you will have this peace. Protecting your peace is a way to preserve your love for yourself. Whenever you're in a situation and your gut feeling is telling you, this is not a safe situation, don't do this, and you reject that voice because maybe you were taught to self-doubt yourself all throughout your childhood. Maybe you were in a very strict upbringing and all you were told was, no, you're wrong, what do you know? You ignore that voice, you will let people that shouldn't be in your life be in your life. You put yourself in situations which the whole time deep inside, if you had listened to that voice, was telling you to get out of those situations, but you stood there anyways, and you put yourself in harm's way, and you blame yourself for those decisions. And the more you make the right decisions, the more that you stand up for yourself, the more you see like, wow, that was very empowering for me to just say, no, been there, done that, not doing it again. You will build that, you will strengthen that muscle, that reflex of self-protection, of self-love. And I wanted to make you aware of that. I want you all to love yourself, but in a healthy way in which you make yourself proud. Thank you so much.